Dov, welcome back to the show, man.
Mate, I am so excited to be back here. You and I always have such great combos, not usually recorded, but we always have good conversations. And I'm really looking forward to this one. Like you said, it was what, 5.5 years?
5.5 years since the last time you were on, and it's been like, I'm really bad at math, 7 years since your first time, which is
Wow.
crazy. Number one, that I've known you for that long. Talk
Right.
about talk about how much has changed in both of our lives. But I look at it from a standpoint of we're 5 years older. Let's see if we're 5 years smarter during this conversation.
Can't guarantee that. I know I'm a lot whiter on the
Yeah.
top of the head, and you are no longer fumbling at a bar going, is that somebody I want to meet?
Yeah. No,
Oh, no,
exactly.
I'm staying away from her.
Yeah, that was. I remember one of our first conversations. We were in San Diego at an event we will not mention, and it was one of those things that you and I just we talked till late night, and it was such a
Mm.
deep conversation and a real authentic conversation. I just got to know you on such a deep level, and since then, you're somebody that I reach out to and be like, "Hey, man, I need to talk. There's some stuff that's happening. Let's sit down and have a conversation." And you helped us recently. I think 2 calls ago that we had with some stuff that we were dealing with in the home. And you're just a man full of wisdom. And I'm so
Thank you,
glad that
sir.
we get to share this conversation with my audience. But why don't we start with like, where is Dov today? And then we'll break down all the dichotomy behind it.
Oh, where am I today? Today I am at a personal level, still married, 27-year
Wow.
anniversary coming up on
Happy
Saturday.
anniversary.
Sorry, on Saturday. Thank you. Still married to the woman of my dreams, which is just such an incredible blessing. Now a granddad of six, um, youngest being two, eldest being 31. So
Wow.
grandkids,
Wow.
right? But as you know, I started having children when I was 7, so that's why I look young. Um, so still working with international clients who are athletes, entertainers, high-profile individuals, CEOs, etc. Privately, still working with organizations, helping them to develop their emotional source code and build their cultures. Still advising politically and those kinds of things. Writing for LinkedIn, writing for my own platform, dovbaron.com, and writing for other outlets as well. Still appearing on shows and still have the Dov Baron show that's still doing well after 16 years of podcasting before
Crazy.
podcasting was called podcasting. And then new book coming out this fall called Creating Cultures of Belonging.
I love it, and I'm excited about that book coming out. And you talk about emotional source code, and that's something you dropped already. Introduce that if we haven't talked about it in previous episodes. Introduce that to my audience and the importance of it.
No, I don't believe we have talked about it in the structure of it. So the simple way of understanding it is that it's the unconscious emotional DNA for how you perceive the world. So you and I like to think that we're logical people. And the truth of the matter is, this is not my opinion, this is neuroscience. We are a post rational species. What that means is we rationalize what we emotionally decide, but we do it so fast that we think our rational decision is the decision. It's always emotional first. As Antonio Damasio, who's a very famous neuroscientist, said, there is no rationale without emotion. It just doesn't exist.
Mm,
So when you come into the world, this is understanding the levels of the emotional source code. When you come into the world, you are born into an environment, whatever that environment is, good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. And that set of circumstances is the foundation of your emotional source code. The second level of that is what's called the anatomy of meaning. And what that means is you naturally, very quickly determine what's safe and what's not safe, how to survive, because human beings are pretty useless. When you think about it, like other species, they drop a baby out, right? An elephant drops a baby out and carries on walking, right? It's
yeah.
like, figure it out, dude. I'm keeping moving, right? Whereas we're clinging to the boob and we're like, no, don't let me go. And if I do, I'm gonna cry for a week and I'm gonna shit my pants forever, right?
Yeah.
So we're so much more dependent. And so, because of that, we have to work out very quickly, how do I survive in this environment? And that's not just survive physically, but emotionally. We work out how to be in order to survive. So if your dad's an alcoholic, or your mom's a drug addict, or your dad's abusive, or your mom's or they're not. They're just shut down or whatever it might be. You work out quickly what things mean. That's the anatomy of meaning. That look has a meaning. That thing being served has a meaning. This environment has a meaning. Money has a meaning. All those things are happening super fast, way before you can work them out. That is imprinted into your emotional source code as the anatomy of meaning. Out of that anatomy of meaning, you have to determine, well, who do I need to be?
Mm.
So you're already building your identity by the time you're 7 at a neurological, biological, and psychological level. This is who I need to be. This is my identity. So when you say to somebody, you've changed, oftentimes they go, no, I haven't. What a stupid response.
Yeah.
Why not? Thank you. We go, no, I haven't, because that's a threat to my identity. Right? So I'm holding on to that. And people will die for their identity.
Yeah.
Above the identity, what comes out of the identity is a set of beliefs and values. If this is who I am, if this is what life means, and if this is who I am, then I have to hold these set of beliefs and values. I don't consider whether they're mine. I just attach them to the identity. And that determines the behaviors. So people are trying to change their behavior. I overeat and, blah, blah, blah. And, I've tried the diets and they don't work. Because it's not a behavior. You think it's a behavior. Oh, yeah, it's my beliefs, isn't it? I have terrible beliefs. Yeah, but that's not the reason. It's your identity. That's the central cog of everything. And biologically, at a neuroscience level, your identity is an addiction. You are looking to mainline. If you believe you're a rescuer, if you always dated women who needed rescuing, you're mainlining rescuing. She comes along and, oh, I'm a damsel in distress. And you're like, oh, hold on a second. Let me get my coconuts. Because I'm going to ride into the rescue. Right? Whatever it is. So that's the structure of the emotional source code. And it's the reason that people don't change. And why, and it's what's really interesting about it is that original stuff, that foundation, and then the anatomy of meaning that builds the identity, that often makes people very successful. It might make them incredibly failing, but as you know, the people I work with, their identity has made them incredibly successful because it was a survival mechanism. So it just becomes building and building and building, but it becomes this brass ring they can never quite reach. And they become deeply dissatisfied. So they've got a house here and a house there. They bought an island. They bought the wife a new set of gazonums. They've bought new outfits, whatever it might be. They've had their hair transplant. They've got all those things. And it's like something's missing. And it's because their world is built on an identity rather than on the truth of who they are that got suppressed by the time they were 7 and certainly by the time they were 12.
Yeah.
That kind of gives you the broad overview.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about a couple of conversations ago about, your identity is built in those first 7 years. But as you wander through life as an adult, I imagine it's all subconscious. You don't even know why. So where does the self-awareness begin, right? It's easier to ask that question to the people that are super successful, right? Because they can just keep building and then feeding that addiction and continuing to get more and continuing to get more, and they can ride off into the sunset and secretly be miserable. But when does the self-awareness begin for these individuals?
Self-awareness always begins at the same place, pain. Right? So when people ask me, I've done a lot of purpose work with very high-profile people and with companies. I'm working with a very large organization right now to help them build their cultural purpose for the organization. It always starts with pain. Your purpose is hidden in your pain. You think it's in your passion. It's not in your passion. Well, I'm very passionate about this. Who cares? I was passionate about certain things when I was 15, and if I'd have stayed on that path, I'd be a manager at Victoria's Secret. Right? That's not my desire in life, right? It's a pretty common passion. Your purpose is actually evolving from your pain. Think for a moment about something in the world that pisses you off, not today, not even in the last few years. So you go, oh, I'm pissed off at Donald Trump, or I'm pissed off at the Democrats, or, no, those are things that are happening right now, or in the recent times. What is it that's bugged you all your life? So if it's bugged you, like if you lost your mother to addiction, it's possible, I'm not saying it's true, it's possible that it's bugged you all your life. Why do people become addicted? Like, what is it about that? That's something that's driven you at an unconscious level. So you're still doing all your surface stuff for your identity, but the undercurrent is this pain
Mm.
that's actually giving you a purpose. So if your purpose isn't rooted in your pain, it's not really your purpose.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I recently saw a reel or a TikTok or whatever. Have you ever heard of a guy named Simon Quibb?
No.
So
Oh
he's
yes, out of the UK.
yeah, out of the UK.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he has a very large following now, and he essentially goes around and he talks about like what's your dream. He asks people what's
yeah.
your
What's your
dream,
dream? Yeah,
yeah, and then he
that's his
helps
book,
them.
I think. Yeah,
Yeah, and he helps them build their dream. And he talked about like somebody was like, I don't know what my purpose is. And he goes, well, what's your pain, right? And I think again, it goes back to the question of because we are so many people are navigating on neutral all the time that they're just going right the next thing after the next thing after the next thing. They don't even stop to think or like where can I begin. I think sometimes they might hear a story like mine and go, well, I don't have a story like that, so I can't get up on a stage and tell it, or whatever the case may be. But the reality is everybody's pain relates so heavily with so many people because that's the human condition, right? Is pain.
yeah. Even the Buddha talked about it that pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice, but pain is inevitable. It's part of the life. And I think that people the other thing is that because of the we live in the TikTok, Instagram world, is that we do competitive pain. Well, my pain is not as big as yours, so I don't have the right to stand on stage. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Whether your stage is TikTok or whether it's a literal stage, but it's like there are people out there who don't have the courage to face their pain, and you telling your story gives them permission. One of the things I've said for many, many years is you need to know something. If you're going to work with me, I know why you're coming, even if you don't. And I go, okay. And I go, you're coming for permission, not guidance.
Interesting.
So I'm just going to tell you now, I'm going to save you a lot of money and a lot of time. You have my permission. Whatever it is you want to do, you have my permission because I can't give it to you anyway. But so here's, you want to go screw around? Fantastic. Have a good time. None of my business. You have my permission. If you're coming to me to find justification, which will give you permission, no. But if you're coming to find out what's in your soul that cries out for expression, if there's a deep greatness within you that's been calling to you since you were a kid that you've repressed and suppressed in order to survive, I'm going to help you with that. Is that going to be a joyous experience? Yes, but not initially. And the reason to think of it is this: you're about to be born. I don't know if you've got any kids, but if you've got kids, you will know, ask your missus, it's not a pleasant experience. Getting the baby, that's fantastic. But pushing a 7-pound watermelon out of a small hole, that's a painful process and a messy one. You're birthing yourself. There is no phoenix without the fire.
Mm.
You want to be the phoenix that rises from the fire, but you don't want the fire. Well, it doesn't work that way. Enlightenment is a destructive process. It must burn down a lot of things that are false in order to give birth to what is real.
This is so good. It's so good. What are questions that people can start asking themselves to become more aware before they even get to the stage of, hey, I need to call Dov and start working with him?
I mean, it starts with that simple question: what is the pain? What is the thing that has? No, it might not be painful to you directly in the moment, but what is the thing that's bothered me all my life? Is it racism? Is it anti-Semitism? Is it men are struggling? Like, whatever it is it that fatherless sons? Is it motherless daughters? Whatever it is, right? It might be pollution. It could be, I'm not there to tell you what it is. What is the problem that you have seen all your life? Dealing with one of my CEOs actually yesterday, we were in a session and we were talking about this, and he goes, it's respect. Like, now that people go, well, that's kind of vague. No, very subjective. Because remember, anatomy of meaning is it's very subjective. We all think we're rational, but we have emotional logic before rational logic. So for him, it's that meaning of respect. So I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Tell me how you didn't feel respected.
Mm.
Now, let me just give you a clue here. This is an this is the only boy in a family of six, five girls and him.
Wow.
He's not first in the birth order, but he is a Chinese male. So he gets tons of respect, quote, because he's the boy and the generation he comes from. So he's automatically a Chinese prince, right? So you think, well, why would he have a problem with respect? Because he had all this weight thrust upon him, but it had nothing to do with respect. It had to do with responsibility and that he could do no wrong. He had to do everything right, but he could do no wrong. So he was never going to get punished for doing things wrong, but he always was living in this expectation of doing things right. And so he never felt respected for being who he was as a human.
Mm.
So for him, it's like this gnarly thing inside of him. And so he's always like talking to his people about we've got to have respect for our people, and and they're like, okay, we don't get it,
Yeah.
right? So I helping him to translate what that means in the world, so that becomes a purpose for him.
Yeah, that's a lot of the issue, right? People get annoyed by something, especially now, and they start shouting online. And there's no real like people are like, I don't get it, I don't see it. They're not understanding that pain. Can you explain it to people or in your messaging without outright being like, this is what I mean, right? I'm sure that the CEO that you work with can't be like, well, here's why, because I'm Chinese and I'm the only boy, and so therefore you have to
Well,
respect it.
we got to that, but it took a
Right.
while,
But
right?
I'm saying for him though, he can't now go to his team or his people and say, this is why what I mean by respect. How can you translate your purpose and what you're talking about to other people in such a clear way?
I think to tell you the answer to that, I have to sort of take a step back to give it an understanding. And what it is this: you, I, we now live in a world that is almost void of nuance and context. Right? You say, you know, I'm in favor of RFK Jr. Let's just make one up, right? I'm in favor of RFK Jr. Oh, so you support children dying from measles? Did I say that? There's no context. Now, I didn't give you context in saying I support RFK Jr., and I'm not saying I do or I don't. I'm just giving it as an example. But we jump to a conclusion without a context. And everything in our world has no context. It's clickbait. Yes, no, right, wrong, good, bad, evil, good, etc. Right? And what we need to do is, in order to convey any message, we have to always relay context and listen for nuance, because there's context in what I'm delivering and there's nuance in what's being received. So if I say I'm pro drugs, right? No context to that. It might mean I'm in favor of pharmacology.
Yeah.
I support big pharma. It might mean I'm a pothead. It might mean I'm an addict. It could mean a million things. But if you don't have context, if you don't stop to say, well, what does that mean, Dov? You're going to jump to your own conclusions, not because you're bad, but because that's how the brain works. You've already associated meaning. And you have the part of the growth of you as an individual is to challenge your own meaning. So what does that mean, Dov, to you? I can tell you what it means to me, but I want to find out what it means to you. Oh, okay. And they said, well, it means this to me. Well, now let me tell you my nuance of how I hear that. So when we're relaying our purpose, we have to give context. And sometimes the context is the vulnerability of our history. So it's like, I felt a lot of, I'm using the story from before. I felt a lot of pressure as being this only boy in a family of girls and being of Chinese heritage. And there was a lot of pressure put on me to be things that weren't necessarily who I am. And so I think that it's really important for us to have respect as part of our culture. And what that means to me is that respect for you, whether you're a boy or a girl or you're white or non-white, but to respect your energy, your effort, your commitment, to respect you as a human being outside of all of those things. Oh, okay, now we get it.
Yeah.
I
So
only need a
powerful.
little bit of context.
Yeah, it's funny, and I remember obviously after my mom passed away from her addiction to pain pills, I was like, "Oh, I hate big pharma, I hate big pharma," without real context. And I can now in a much better way, talk about why I stand where I stand. And once you're able to do that, I think people are a little bit more accepting of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and everything else in between. I mean, there's still going to be people that are pissed off about your opinion, but I think overall it's a lot clearer to them, right?
The truth of the matter is, I wrote an article recently. It was about how to bring America back together again, right? And then I wrote another one, which was a sister article. I wrote that on dovbaron.com. And I wrote a sister article on LinkedIn, which is how to talk to people who think you're the enemy and make them allies.
Mm.
And part of that was in being willing to listen, being willing to be curious. And curiosity, as you know, because we've talked about it so many times, is my religion. I study religion all over the world. People say, "What's your religion?" My religion is curiosity. And because it's my religion, I fail at it miserably all the time. And I need to keep reminding myself to do better. But that curiosity allows me or allows us to say, well, what is it about it? So you have an emotional impact piece around big pharma. Now, have my question to you, if you were my client, was, have you gone looking for evidence of everything you believe? Because if that is, that all you're doing is building cognitive bias,
Right.
right? And that's what most of us do.
Yeah.
Or have you looked at what's great about it? So if I was working with you as a client, I'd say, okay, so here's what I want you to do. You have 1 week to come back to me with the 10 great things about Big Pharma. And you'd like, fuck you. I'm not doing that. No, you need to do that. Why? So that you can sit down with somebody who's pro pharma and say, here's what, I understand that. I agree with that. And they go, what? Because it's not good, bad, right, wrong. Because nobody wants to be made wrong. So let me find out what's right about it. Right? Let me find out what's right about. I'm a Democrat. Let me find out what's right about the Republicans. I'm a Republican. Let me find out what's right about the Democrats. Right? Let's find out what's right about the other side so that we can have a very human conversation. That way we can start creating cultures of belonging at a societal level, not just at a corporate level. I mean, my new book is called Creating Cultures of Belonging. And yeah, officially it's a quote leadership or corporate book, but it's not. Here's the secret. It's not. It's what we need in our society. We've got to create cultures of belonging, places where people can fit in and wear a red hat or a blue hat, where people can be a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew or, whatever you are. That's what we've
Yeah.
got to do.
Yeah, your sign off for as long as I've known you is stay curious, my friend, stay curious. And from that standpoint, I took that to heart and I really started to ask tougher questions. And I have done deeper dives into why. Like when I first met you, I would have said straight up, I'm a Republican. Here's why. I've been a Republican my whole life. Here's why. I'm very much in the middle now because there's good and bad on both sides. It is what it is. And unfortunately, if we're talking politics, unfortunately in this world, it is right or wrong, left or right, doesn't matter. There is no middle ground. The middle ground never wins, right? When it comes to that stuff. And so you kind of, for me, it's like, well, how do I find my peace, my happiness? And it is in curiosity. Now, for the last number of years, I started saying curiosity is a superpower to people because when you can ask the right questions and you truly listen and you're actually interested in what the individual has to say, like it opens up the world. And this is what I've been doing for almost 10 years. You've been doing it for 16 years on your podcast. And I know you purposely bring people on that you disagree with and you have great conversations with them. Where did that begin with for you? Because that I feel like that's not a 20-year-old male is not going, oh man, I got to stay curious about all the things. That's usually not the case.
So the truth of the matter is that I think that very naturally I was a curious kid, and I got punished for it. I was told I was talking out of turn. I was told I was speaking to adults and I was a child. I didn't know. I got all that kind of stuff. So I got my curiosity pretty shut down. And what that did, of course, was pushed me into the opposite, which was dogmatic. I got very dogmatic. By the time I was 20, I knew the answers.
Mm.
I was such an idiot that I thought I had all the answers, right? But then after I fell, that awakening for me was that I had to be willing to, what my realization of it was, that I had to be willing to question everything I'd held as truth. And I'd professed this before, but never really stepped into it fully. And so my question to somebody is, if you're really going to be curious, are you willing to be curious about the things you're certain of?
Mm.
If your marriage breaks down, it's because you cease to be curious. There's a million other reasons, but at the foundation, when your wife talks to you or your partner talks to you, are you curious? Or do you, yeah, or do you cut her off or cut him off by saying your point? Like the other day, I was talking to my wife and she was telling me something, and I jumped in and she goes, "Let me finish." And I went, "Oh, shit, sorry." Like I said, I'm a failure at my own religion. Shit,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay.
It's the human condition, right?
Of course it is. And that's why we got to keep doing it, right? So that willingness to be curious really came back after the fall. So I was 32. And the realization that I had to be willing to ask questions about what I was previously certain about. So, do you believe in God? Do you believe in faith? Do you believe in science? Do you believe in, whatever it is that? So, my question to myself was, I wrote a list of what am I absolutely certain about? Not a long list. I think it was like 8 things. Absolutely certain about. Am I willing to question this beyond beyond looking for my own biases? So I would search for answers around why is this a wrong idea?
Yeah.
So I read Christopher Hitchens and I read all those kinds of things and went, okay, if God is my belief, what is the opposite? Like maybe I'm wrong. Am I willing to question that? Well, and everybody's like, no, don't question that. I got to question that. Like, is charity a good thing? I've got, charity is a good thing. Really question that. Is that true? Wow. To question beyond my biases. That takes courage. And that's why I say, and this is part of my equation, is courage plus curiosity equals love.
Mm. I love that.
Put that into your marriage today and tell me how your marriage starts to change when you apply courage, meaning saying the things you're difficult to say, plus curiosity, being willing to ask questions that you might not want the answers to get to a deeper understanding of love. Because if
Yeah.
I face you and you're I'd say a hardcore MAGA or a hardcore BLM, and I'm the opposite, and I approach it with courage and deep curiosity, I'm certain I can find something I love about you.
For sure. Yeah. I posted something on the 4th of July. Obviously home of the free because of the brave, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end I go, can we stop making politics our personality? And I think that's what's happened, right? Like people, and I'm sure throughout many generations, people have done this with different things as heated arguments have arisen. But in my lifetime, this is the most divided and separated we've ever been. Um,
Well, there's many factors there, of course. I mean, you've got social media,
yeah, it's huge.
right? Right. Social media, I mean, people make money from being polarizing, you know. So if you're going to make money by polarizing, and so for me, when I look at that, people go, "Isn't this upsetting?" And I go, "Actually, it's a state of conditioning." And people go, "What do you mean?" And I go, if there is a quote creator, influencer, whatever term you want to use, saying horrible shit that is polarizing, that just tells me who they are. It doesn't tell me that they're a fascist, even though they might be saying fascist stuff. It tells me that they're wounded.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, and by the way, on the other side, I see these influencers are all love and rainbows and unicorns, and I'm like, yeah, they're so wounded.
Yeah.
They're just as wounded as the asshole who's saying, kill all the Jews or kill all the Muslims. Like, you're so wounded that the only thing you can do is talk about your wound and disguise it. That's why you're polarizing, right? If you can own your shit, everybody's wounded. Every human being you meet is in pain. Like, take that in for a minute. When you walk down the street tomorrow, when you go to Starbucks to get your coffee, the person you interact with behind the counter is in pain. And when you can grasp that, it may not be evident. They may have a smiley mask on, and you go, you're always in such a good mood, Jamie, when you serve me, and I really like it. Blah, blah. That's true. But it's often the most, quote, externally happy people who suicide.
Yeah.
Not the people who walk around miserable. It's actually the happy ones who suicide. Everybody goes, I don't understand it. We are walking around in pain. And if you can stop and ask yourself, what this person is doing is trying to ease their pain. You see the person with the needle in their arm, they're trying to ease their pain. You see the person putting out venomous bullshit on the internet, they're just trying to ease their pain. And when I look at that, you see, now I've got courage plus curiosity to have love. So this venomous shit that's pouring out of your mouth, I can just see that as a symptom of your pain. Just like a wound that would ooze stinky stuff. Your wound is oozing stinky stuff onto the internet. So what I want to know is, what's the pain? Now, you may never be willing to admit that question, to that answer. Okay, I understand that. But I'm not going to look at you in any other lens than you're in pain.
Mm. So powerful. There's so many directions I want to take this conversation, but just to give context, you mentioned a couple times your fall.
Mhm.
Can you briefly tell that story just so the people listening can understand what that is and why it was such an important moment in your life?
Sure. 1990, I was about as successful as I'd ever been. I knew I was successful because I owned a big American car. And as a young boy growing up very poor in northern England, I occasionally saw a big American car. Like, there was a main road that went into the city that was just off where I lived in the ghetto, and I would see, I would sit and watch cars with my mate, and every now and then there would be a Mustang or a Corvette. Like, these were extremely rare. I mean, you would see that once every couple of months.
Yeah.
And I always had this feeling that if you have a big American car, you've made it, right? So at that point, I had a Ford LTD in 1990, which, by the way, didn't do miles to the gallon. It did gallons to the mile. It was just a beast, right?
Gas
But it
was a
was
little bit
part of,
cheaper back then.
yeah. Even then, it was like crazy, right? But it was, for me, it was like this status symbol of knowing I'd made it. I was on TV, I was on radio, I was being interviewed in magazines. You couldn't even get to talk to me for 6 weeks. It was crazy. Um, and then, but at the same time, the other side of my life was I was an adrenaline junkie. I did all kinds of shit for adrenaline. That was my mainline drug. So I did, my buddies and I would drive around hanging onto roof racks at 50 miles an hour,
Jeez.
right? We just did, and that's just one example. And I was a free climber. Now, when I say free climber, you're going to probably think about Freestyle, that great movie, and blah, blah. Not that. Those guys are fucking nuts. They're insane. But I climbed stuff without equipment all the time. And on this particular day, I was about 120 feet, which is about 12 stories. I reached for a rock. That rock dislodged a bigger rock that hit me in the face and sent me hurtling down at maximum velocity. And I landed on my face and got smashed to pieces. And my life, in the form that it had been, ended that day. If you'd have asked me 2 minutes before I fell, is your life on purpose, Dov? I would have said absolutely. It wasn't, but I would have said absolutely. Um, that was the turning point. It wasn't the fall that was the turning point. It was everything that came out of the fall. So people go, that must have changed your life. No, it didn't. In fact, I can tell you that it embedded me deeper in my ego.
Hmm.
As a sort of sidebar example, I remember going to see a friend of mine in hospital about 10 years ago who'd had a triple bypass surgery unexpectedly. So he had a heart attack, didn't know he had any problems, whipped into the hospital, triple bypass surgery. I go to see him, and he's like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. I've missed I've missed my anniversary, I've missed my kids, blah, blah, blah. I've been working too hard, been on the hustle treadmill. I got to stop. And I'm like, that's great. I think you're absolutely right. I saw him again just as he was leaving the hospital. He was still very committed to that. Saw him 6 months later. He was back to doing 70 hours a week. I said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, this is just who I am." No, that's your identity, you clunkhead. That's the stuff I talk about. It's your identity. You're not challenging the identity. So you're going to do the same behaviors because you've got the same belief systems running. So he's still missing out on everything. So my identity was shattered on the day I fell. But it took me a full 9 months to realize that, because when people would say to me, "How you doing?" with my jaw wide closed, I'd say, "I'm great. I'm coming back." I was bullshitting. I wasn't great. I was deeply, darkly depressed. But 9 months later, I had to realize, no, this is a lie. And that was when the fire took place. The fall was stacking all the wood ready for the fire. But 9 months later, the fire took place, and that fire burned for about 9 months before the Phoenix arrived.
Yeah, you talk about, challenging your beliefs. When you wrote that list of 8 things, do I believe in God? Do I believe in science? Do I believe in are there any of those 8 things that you change your mind after doing deep dives?
Oh, all of them.
Wow.
All of them. I changed my mind about every single one of them. Not necessarily to an opposite, but certainly to some variance. Because if I don't have that variance, I'm not really open.
Yeah.
Right? I sat down with recently, about 2 years ago, I sat down with John Lennox, who is the leading theologian, Christian theologian at Cambridge University.
Wow.
He's a quantum mathematician by training, and he's a leading theologian. He's gone up against Christopher Hitchens and all the famous atheists and always wins the debate, right? He's a hardcore Christian. I'm not a Christian. I don't believe in John 3:16, right? I've studied the Christian faith. I've studied Gnostic and Coptic Christianity as well as New Testament and Old Testament. I am a scholar of those things. But I don't believe in that. But I could sit down with him and have a phenomenal conversation without having to believe in it, because there are things about it that I've changed my mind about. So one of the things that I was on that list is I'm anti-religion,
Hmm.
right? I'm no longer anti-religion. Am I pro-religion? Hell no. But I'm not anti either, because I look at it from a psychological point of view and go, there was a time when people were running around chopping off each other's heads in order to steal a loaf of bread or to steal a bit of meat, right? So was there a need? Was there a need for um, for some set of rules to help people behave in a way that could be better with each other? Yeah. Have those rules got out of control? Absolutely. But I understand it. I understand where it came from. So I'm not pro, I'm not anti. I see the good, I see the bad. Okay. And I can make my own choice from there. So there's lots of things. Like I said, everything I changed my mind about, but not to the opposite. And I think that when people challenge their beliefs, they think, I'm not going to challenge my beliefs because I'm not going to go to the opposite. Hell, I don't want you to go to the opposite. I've had people who've said to me, "Listen, I'm a Christian, and I'm not sure I'm going to work with you because I don't want to stop being a Christian." I'm like, hell, if you're a Christian and you work with me, I promise you, if you're genuinely a Christian, you'll probably be more Christian. But if you're not genuinely, you'll be less.
Hmm.
Quick story about that, if I may.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So back in the day, we used to have a public seminar company. And I had this whole series of programs, like Tony Robbins programs and all that, 500,000 people in the room, blah, blah, blah. And then we had these higher level programs that were smaller, more intimate. And one of them was called Quantum Life Mastery. And we get into some deep, deep spiritual, political, we go to all the deep stuff, right? And so I said, put your hand up if you're a person of faith. So, all these people put their hand up. And I go, put your hand up if you're willing to be challenged on that. There's a few people, not as many, of course. Oh, okay, cool. I said, so I'm going to challenge you on it, but I want you to know that I have no interest in taking your faith away. So let me be very clear on that. No interest whatsoever. But I am going to challenge it. Are you willing to go there? And this one guy goes, yep. Okay, Frank, great, Frank, tell me. He says, I'm a Catholic. I go, oh, good. How long have you been a Catholic? All my life. Why are you Catholic? Well, that's what I am. No. I don't think that you entered the world knowing you were Catholic. No, but I was born in a Catholic family. I'm Catholic. And I go, oh, so your religion is a lineage of your family. Well, yeah, I guess so. Then why are you a Catholic? Well, I go to church on Sundays and on holidays. And I go, well, if I park a Ford in a Ferrari garage every Sunday, does that make it a Ferrari? And he goes, no. And I go, well, then why are you a Catholic? And this went on, right, for probably a good 20, 25 minutes. At the end, of course, he's pissed off at me, right? Because I'm challenging him on every aspect of his faith.
Yeah.
And at the end of that program, he didn't say goodbye to me. Everybody lined up to say goodbye to me. Big hug, thank you. Well, he didn't. He took off. Obviously, he's pissed off. Okay, fair enough. Probably 3 months later, I'm walking down Robson Street, this street that I live by, and he's walking down Robson Street, and I can see him coming, and I think, oh, should I go and duck in a store? Probably going to be unpleasant. And I went, well, no, that's not who I am. So I stayed walking, and he looked up and saw me, and a big smile comes on his face. He comes up to me, he gives me a big hug. He goes, Dov, it's so great to see you. I'm so happy to see you. And I said, Frank, I'm kind of surprised. And he goes, why? I said, well, I thought you would be still pissed off at me. He goes, oh, no. He goes, I'm so happy to see you. And I said, why is that? He goes, because now I'm a Catholic.
Mm.
He had gone and done an inner search within himself to why am I a Catholic? What is it about it? What is it that ties him to it? What is it that bonds him to it? That makes it a choice rather than a reaction or something that you were given? Where's the choice? And most people in our lives are walking around, they've never made a decision in their life. Now, they think they have, and I'm not being mean, but they're in reaction to something, or they've been indoctrinated with something rather than been a choice. Like you said, you would have said, I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican all my life. Why? What do you know about the Republican Party? You're 17. Very little? Okay.
Yeah.
Then why? It's just, like I talk about being born in the UK. People are like Man City, Man United, Tottenham Hotspur. Those are religions. They're called football clubs, but they're religions. Why? Because everybody in my family supports Liverpool. So of course I support Liverpool. Why? Because we're Man City fans. That's what we are. And that's kind of how people are with all their belief systems. So why do you believe this? Well, everybody in my family believes this. Everybody in my family voted for Trump. So I voted for Trump. Everybody in my family is a liberal. So we voted for Kamala. Why?
Yeah. It's so powerful. How can somebody flip a switch? And I know it takes work and potentially a pain point like falling 120 feet.
No, you don't have to do that. Please don't do that.
Don't try and land on your face from 10
Don't
stories up.
I'm the world champion rock diver. Why? Because I survived.
Yeah, it's just wild. But how can somebody become more proactive instead of reactive through their life? Because like you said, it is a program. We are programmed to be reactive to what we think we believe in.
So again, it's curiosity. What is it that I don't know about this thing that I think I know? So a young man says, I'm in love with this woman. I go, okay, what is it you don't know about this thing you think you know? What do you mean? Well, you think you know that you love her, right? Yes. What is it you don't know? I don't know. Good. Go find out. Good. Go find out. What are you not seeing? Because our belief systems, remember the stack, right? Foundation, anatomy of meaning, identity, beliefs and values, behavior. Right? Behavior's at the surface. That's all the stuff you do. Below that is the beliefs. We're not even in the deep stuff yet, but start questioning the beliefs. Like, I've got this feeling that I'm in love with her. Great. I'm in favor of love. Believe me, I'm 100% in favor of that. But what I also know is the person you attract into your life, the person you are most compelled towards, is the person who can cause you the most pain. They go, what do you? No, no. I feel like I don't have pain with her. I promise you, give it a bit of time. This will be the person who caused you the most pain. The difference in a good relationship and a bad relationship is they know that and they know how they do it and they commit to not doing it or being accountable for when they do it, even if it's not on purpose.
Mm.
Nobody can wound me anywhere near as well as my wife. 27 years married, nobody can wound me anywhere as, but nobody can heal me any better. And it's like after these years and a lot of work, it's like I know I'm not going to behave in this way because I know this will wound her. Simple example, when we were together, I think probably about 5, 6 months, I'm in my kitchen and being me, I can be a bit ADD around doing things. And so I'm putting the dishes away, emptying the dishwasher. She's in the living room. And what separates the kitchen from the living room is a doorway, not a door, but a doorway. And I'm putting the dishes away. And of course, in my absent-mindedness, I've not opened the cupboard door properly. So as I lift the dish up to put it in the thing, I bang my head on the door and I give it a good old whack. And it hurt. So I take my fist and I pound the counter like the counter like the counter did anything wrong. Fuck! Like I'm mad, right? And I'm holding onto my head like, oh. And I see my wife, who's then my girlfriend, glide into this open doorway and look at me with like the deer in the headlights look. And I look at her and I'm going, what? Like I'm just mad at myself. I'm not mad at her. I'm not mad at anything else. I'm just mad at my own stupidity. And she glides away and I can see she's terrified. In that moment, I know, okay, this is not about me anymore. Got to go. I go to her and I say, she barely can talk. All I said is, in that moment, who was I? She goes, that was my father. I said, tell me. She goes, my dad would be fixing something or doing something, and he'd hit his thumb with the hammer, or the screwdriver would slip and cut him, or whatever it is. And immediately, all the children would get the belt. All 5 kids would get the belt. They had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But his anger, his shit that was repressed, would come out on all of those kids. So when I did something stupid and I got angry, remember, her anatomy of meaning is somebody has hurt themselves, I'm going to get violently punished. That's how quick it is. Now, this is a woman who's in her mid-late 30s by the time I've met her, right? And she's a very mature, very intelligent, very together human being who's suddenly triggered back into this childhood wound. It's not her. It's what happens for all of us. Some people deny it or repress it or whatever it is, but it still happens. So I looked at her and I said, here's what I need you to know. She goes, what? I said, I love you, but I am going to hurt you. She goes, why would you do that? I said, I would never do that on purpose. But I don't know every piece of your history. I don't know every trigger. So I'm going to hurt you, never on purpose. Will never be volitional. But it's going to happen unconsciously. Your job is to let me know. Because you're going to hurt me. And our job is to help each other heal. It's not your job to heal me. It's not my job to heal you. But our job is to help each other heal, to support each other. And when this happens, I feel insecure. And that comes from this anatomy of meaning from my childhood. I get that. And I know that you're not my dad. And I know you're not my mom. But that's what happens for me. So I can say, can I change that behavior? Yeah, of course. Or, no, I'm sorry. That's foundationally who I am. You're going to have to go deal with your shit.
Yeah. Wow. So your wife's older than you, right?
Younger.
She's younger than you.
5 years younger than me.
But it's a testament to say when you should wait till the woman is in her mid to late 30s to get married to her because they figured a bunch of shit out. That's how my wife was 39 when I met her. I was like, this is it. Finally figured it out.
Mate, I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many times I have told my friends, do not marry a woman under 35. I mean, there are people who marry people under 35 and have lasted. I get it, but it's rare.
Yeah.
It's rare. And I'm sitting down with my son last week. He's 39. His wife is 40. And my son and his wife are smart enough to allow my wife and I to guide them because we guide executive couples, right? We train executive couples. And so they're smart and they actually do the work. And I said, there was something going on. And I said to my son, you have a maximum of 5 years left. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, she just told you 5 pockets of resentment. In 5 years, she is going to divorce you. Maybe not literally, but emotionally, if you don't deal with these pockets of resentment. Because when she hits perimenopause or menopause, all the filters are gone. What happens is, by the time she's in her early mid-30s, she starts to go, I'm not the person I thought I was. Now, men, we're stupid. We take a bit longer, right? Because we are. Our brains develop slower. We emotionally mature slower than women do, right? So we come into more of our maturity usually in our early 40s. Women get there in their early 30s. We might be maybe late 30s, but women get there earlier. And they go, this is not who I am. What am I doing? And oftentimes, women will walk away from marriages at that age. The other time that women will walk away from marriages is in perimenopause because they don't have the filters. And you've gone from having this wife who wants to jump your bones every 5 minutes to who has an inner volcano that is incredibly hot and stops and blows heat and she can't bear it and instead of jumping your bones can't bear you touching her, right? This loving, kind person who's now like, because her filters are off. And if you've not done that work as a couple, and if you've not done that work as individuals inside of that couple, shit's going to blow up. So you might go, oh, we've got a great marriage. And, Susie Cream Cheese and I are just lovely and we're always shagging and it's fantastic and we can talk about anything. I'm like, okay, good. Good. Because that's a phase of relationship. If you've not gotten to that conflict phase, you're actually not in the relationship yet. Because in that conflict phase, your wounds are going to come forward. And by learning to be courageous, by learning to be curious in the world, and applying that same standard in your relationship, because you're thinking in your head, I know, she's gone mad. Like, what the fuck is she talking about? She just said I did this. I did not do that. That's not what I was thinking. She's gone completely insane. And you have to have instead courage and curiosity combined with compassion so you can get to love. So it's like, tell me what that is, babe. I don't understand. I've told you 50 times to put the pans over here. You're absolutely right. You have. Well, why haven't you done it? Do you do it to irritate me? Do you think that that's my mission in life? Of course not. I don't want to irritate you because I don't like the result of irritating you. So I certainly don't do it for that reason. So why do you do it then? I don't know, babe, but I really got to go away and think about that. I appreciate you having patience with me so I can understand that. And I'm going to do a better job. But let me ask you, what is it about it for you that really irritates you? And because you think it's about the pots, the pans being left there. No, what it is I feel like I'm your maid and that I'm supposed to be your bloody mother and clean up after you. Well, I'm not your mother. Oh, what's that about? Well, I felt like I had to take care of everybody when I was a kid. Oh, now we're at our wounds. Fantastic. Now we're in a relationship. Now we're in the depth, the nitty gritty, the juicy part of the relationship where the intimacy is deep and profound. Not just all kisses and shagging, but depth. The grit of the relationship that bonds people in a profound way so that I know you've got my back and I've got your back and we will stand on the hill and we will fight together for what matters because we're unified. Not because we're attracted. Attraction's there, that's great, but that's not it.
Yeah. Yeah. So really the four C's, right? Courage, curiosity, compassion, and communication uh, will
Equal
get
love.
you there. Yeah, well, equal
Equal
love.
love. Yeah, so we think of love as this biological response that happens inside of us, but that's infatuation, right? So there's a whole set of neurochemicals that go off when you fall in love, when you are attracted, right? But when you apply courage, curiosity, compassion to your communication, you get love because that floods oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. This is very important. The oxytocin is a very important hormone because the dopamine and the serotonin and the adrenaline that add up to the infatuation are fabulous. They're delicious. They make you want to shag all night. It's wonderful. But that's not lasting. You have a tachyphylactic response to that, which means your brain gets used to it and it dies off. Just like you need a bigger line of Coke, or you need more pills, or you need more whatever it is. It wears off. But oxytocin bonds us. If you want to have a deeper relationship with your partner as you're listening to me right now, let me just tell you something to do. Every time you sit together, make sure you're touching. When you talk to each other, make sure there's eye contact. Not glancing up from your phone, eye contact. Most couples do not have eye contact. Most couples don't spend more than 3 minutes a day talking to each other.
Wow.
Spending time, so set as like simple questions. Hey, babe, what was your high today? What was the thing that really lit your candle, made you feel good? What did you really struggle with today? What did you learn today? And if you didn't learn anything, what could you learn from the first two? Like, have that conversation. It might take 5 minutes, it might take 5 hours, but you do it without your phone in your hand, you do it without the TV on, you do it eyeball to eyeball. The depth of your relationship goes through the roof.
I love it, man.
My friends in my life are not people I talk to about the people go, you know what, I don't think I can have those conversations. I'm like, every person in my life I have those conversations with. You know that, Justin. You and I have known each other for 7 years. You know, we don't have superficial conversations.
It takes about 37 seconds to go deep.
Right. That's it. That's because it's a real relationship. And if I can't have that with somebody, that's not somebody I connect with. I mean, I'll try a few times and then it's like, okay, they don't want to go there. I'm not here to make them go there. I'm not here to try and force them to go there. But when we get it, it's like, oh my God, this is so delicious, so juicy. All relationships. So certainly in your primary.
Yeah, for sure.
Then you
So
get belonging with each other and you build a bonding community, a culture of belonging.
dude, this has been such a powerful conversation, and like I feel like we could go on for 3 more hours, which means you're coming back on the show. We won't wait 5.5 years for you to come back onto
Oh,
the
we're not
show.
going to do a Rogan long form? Okay.
Oh, I think that my show is hour 15 max usually, and then I see people dropping off. But the reality is we could 100% go Joe Rogan long form and hold the attention and all the things in between. But I want to ask you a question that I asked every single person on the show. I don't know if I've ever asked you this actually. I don't know when I started doing it. Maybe I did, but it's a two-part question. The first part is, what is your definition of success? And the second part is, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
My definition of success, I mean, there's the superficial definition of, I have a lifestyle and I want to make sure that I uphold that. And not having it would not feel successful. So I can't write it off.
Yeah.
But my definition of success is to feel that I am adding value in every interaction. My personal purpose is to impact the lives of those whose names I will never know and whose names I will never know and who will never know my name. So success is having that impact. At the end of this, the people listening, I'm going to encourage you, if you're not subscribed to Justin's show, subscribe to the show, follow the show, write a review. These things matter because it's a one-way street, and he needs you to let him know that it actually works. But on top of that, tell him what you got out of the show. Tell me what you got out of the show. And then tell someone else what you got out of the show. Maybe it's not this episode, it's another episode. But the person you tell will tell someone else, and that person won't know my name. And that's okay. I don't need them to. I want the impact to be there. So that for me is the definition of success. And then what do I do every day to get that? I commit to being of service in any way, shape, or form that I can. I commit to curiosity. I got to find out how I can be of service in order to be, quote, successful. And what I do every day is I create content, but that means it's not Instagram-ish. I write a lot. And so I'll write on, as you know, I'm a polymath, so I write on a lot of different subjects, whether it's politics or culture or leadership or relationship or whatever it might be. And I do that every single day, whether I want to or not. Now, there are many other things I do that are my own biohacking because I'm an old fart, or whether that's reading and studying, which I do every single day. I study for at least 1 hour every day, meditating, working out, those are other things.
I love it. So I want to ask you this question as well. I want you to fast forward to the end of your life. And I want you to picture that all this content that you created, everything you've written, all the blogs, all the books, all the podcasts that you've recorded, they don't exist anymore. And you can only be remembered for one sentence. What would you want that sentence to be?
Stay curious, my friends. Stay curious.
I love it, dude. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question. But before we get there, how do people find you? I know we said dovbaron.com, but where else can they go to connect with you?
So main site is dovbaron.com, as you said. You can certainly go there. You can find my podcast, The Dov Baron Show, on wherever you get podcasts. We have around 2,000 videos on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best social platform to catch me on. I'm not on Facebook. So at LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, or X, I'm on there. You can actually, I know this is insane, you can actually write to me, Dov, D-O-V, at DOVBARON.com. You can write to me directly. Tell me how I can be of service to you. Tell me how I can help you. If you're a company, an organization, and you'd like to bring me in, let me know that. I speak around the world. But if you're an individual and just you were listening and like, this really hit me, tell me how it hit you. And more importantly, tell me what you're going to do with it. So those are some of the ways. But the truth of the matter is, if you Google Dov Baron, D-O-V-B-A-R-O-n, you're going to get pages and pages and pages, more than you can cope with.
He's been doing this for a while, but like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. I don't remember. I have to go back and listen. I don't remember what your answers were the other times, but the question is: in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
Single moment of growth? There are many. That's why it's difficult. That's why I'm struggling. But my biggest moment of growth, I would have to say, is finding myself after the fall, 9 months after the fall, finding myself on my knees in my living room, holding my dead cat and crying my eyes out, not crying, sobbing, like couldn't get my breath, and realizing that I wasn't crying because my cat had died. I was dying because I realized I had to let me die in the form that I'd been in.
Dov, thank you so much, man, for coming back on the show and continuing to share your wisdom with my audience, with the world, and everybody that you've touched, whether they know your name or not, dude. This has been amazing, Dov. Thank you so much. Love you, man.
I love you too, mate. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you. And thank you to you, dear listener, because it's your time and your energy and your commitment to growth, as it says right above his head, that really makes the difference. So thank you.